Hello, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. We have an update on Madi Prewett. We love Madi Prewett. She was on Pilot Pete's season of The Bachelor, and she accrued a massive following, a platform in which she now is, I guess you would call, an evangelical influencer. She promoted the idea of waiting till you're married to fornicate. She even wore that on her veil, worth the wait. And waiting, they did not do too long after the altar. She's now pregnant with a baby girl, I believe, right? Anyhow, here she is on the Happy and Healthy podcast discussing the hate that they have to deal with from Bachelor Nation. She calls it spiritual warfare and says, bring it on. Hey, Mickey, you're so fine. You're so fine. You blow my mind. Hey, Mickey. Bring it on. What a great movie was that? Oh, my. Kirsten Dunst with that car wash scene. Come on. All of us 13-year-old boys, we're losing our mind. Anyhow, speaking about purity culture, that was my generation. We didn't have the internet. We had Bring It On. And Bring It On we did. So anyhow, I digress. Let's get into it. I'm going to share what Madi had to say. It's pretty interesting, if not controversial. If you enjoy my takes on things or feel like I'm giving you an authentic viewpoint as I sort of navigate the news of pop culture, entertainment, political, things like that, well, then you can join me on the podcast. It is twice a day, the Rush Hour Podcast with Dave Neal. Now you can just scan this link. Just scan that code with your phone, put your phone up to the computer, turn on the camera app, boom, it'll pop up, and then you can listen to the podcast. It's free every morning and every afternoon. Go check that out. And you'll get into heaven if you subscribe to the podcast. That's as far as I know. I was told if you subscribe, you'll get into heaven. So let's get into it. Here's what they had to say. I will pause where I see fit. You can go listen to the podcast Happy and Healthy. And just on a programming note, I would definitely not use these boom arms because they're very squeaky. You need one of these nice silent ones. Oh, mine's a little, I need some WD-40 on mine. It doesn't matter. Let's get it started. Here's what they had to say.
And cry with and like real relationships. So I think the danger of this is like the more we get distance from the real stuff, you probably care more and more and more. So we got to balance.
I can't pay attention to him. All I can see is his hands moving in that giant t-shirt. He's very good with his neuro-linguistic programming. He's very visual. I'm sure that is something that they teach you in like sort of preacher school, right?
Like using the platform God's given you and us and going out and whatever it is that you do to serve.
And just like keeping your eyes on Jesus and what matters most. I think where we get so hung up and care so much about what other people think is when we're so consumed with what other people think about us. And it's like, at the end of the day, I don't live my life to please people. I live my life to please God. That's who I have to give an account to. And so it's like, there are going to be people, scripture promises me, if you follow me, they will hate you. They will reject you. They will persecute you. And it says in Matthew 5, blessed are those who are persecuted for my name's sake, like great is their reward in heaven. And so
that's what a martyr is, right? Blessed are those who are persecuted. Now, is Madi Prewett persecuted for her religious beliefs? I don't believe so. Although, you could argue that, but persecution really has to do with, like, is she denied any opportunities, if you're at work and you're maybe a Muslim or something and you get fired because it's a Christian company, you could then say you were persecuted because your beliefs didn't align. But in this case, it's just other people online calling out her ideology. So we're going to continue this conversation, and then I'll just interrupt where I think there may be sort of a point of contention where you go, I don't think that's the case. I have nothing against Madi. I'm sure I would have a fantastic conversation with her. I don't think that would ever happen, but the invitation is always open on my end. I just think that a lot of the sort of struggle that she perceives with the internet is less the internet persecuting her and more the psychopathic nature of the internet, which is they're assholes to everybody. I don't feel persecuted. I don't think the internet's extra mean to me because I'm a white guy or because I was raised Catholic. I just think the internet's an asshole. That's what I think. But, she might see it as persecution, whereas a black guy might see it as racist, In the end, the internet, and it doesn't mean that persecution and racism don't exist. They absolutely do. But in the United States of America, is Madi married to Grant, son of a billionaire worth $6+ billion, which, by the way, we can't even fathom how much $6 billion is. That is $6,000 million. You could take an arena of 6,000 people, give them all $1 million, and they would be worth slightly less than Grant Trout's father is. That's a lot of money. So when she says, I'm not here to serve people, I'm here to serve God, I would argue, well, I think you could probably trickle down a little bit of that serving other people because you guys are highly privileged to be in a place where you're in your, 20s, filthy rich, and are, worried about what other people do with their bodies.
I am being persecuted because of my love and devotion to Jesus and taking a stand for purity and taking a stand for justice and
maybe for taking a stand for purity. I'll give her that. Maybe she's persecuted for taking a stand for purity.
taking a stand for these things that are very countercultural and very counter how our world is operating today, then it's like, bring it on. Because I don't live for this world. I live for a world that is to come. I live for eternity.
Hey, Mickey, you're so fine. Bring it on. All right. So anyway, great comments from the Reddit section here. Someone said, I have several Christian friends who waited until marriage to have sex. They didn't make a big deal about it, and truly nobody cared. She made it her entire personality. That's why people think it was weird. One of my closest friends waited, and there were some jokes at her bachelorette party from her good friends and sisters about it. But had she wanted to wear a worth the wait veil, we would have intervened. Someone said, Maddie, the same Maddie who commented on her own picture pretending to be her own fan. Yeah, people will never let this go. Maddie accidentally commented thinking she was commenting from a fan account, and it said, beautiful date, Maddie. You are so genuine and real. Now, she argues it was a friend who took her phone and left the comment. Guys, come on. I don't know about that. But either way, it's like, look, I'm not here to judge what other people do with their body. If other people decide to have sex before, putting on one of these stupid rings, like this is a promise ring to my wife. Contractually speaking, we were faithful before this ring and we're going to be faithful after this ring. You know what I mean? So does being married mean something to me? Sure. Yeah, of course it does. But were we faithful to each other beforehand? Absolutely. And did we mean the world to each other beforehand? Absolutely. And you know what? A lot of people have been in sexual relationships with somebody they might not have cared that much about. And to be quite honest, in my opinion, when you have sex, you're actually doing the most godly thing possible because, don't get me started into climaxing, but that's the act of like the most pure, unconditional love. It's the fear that the Bible and men have put on sex as this taboo thing, which actually I think takes away from the powers that we all have, which is to relate and share love. Because love can look in a million different ways, right? But when you're having sex, consensually speaking, with someone else, in most moments, even if you're not in long-term love in that moment, you're sharing love. You're sharing love, right?
And so I think keeping that in mind too is so much of it is even just from like spiritual warfare and like what all Christians are up against, whether it's like a smaller, your community around you, or if you have a platform and it's from like a larger platform, you're going to get some of that spiritual warfare. But again, then there's just like sometimes just the mean people who are like, you're ugly or you're this or you're that. And it's like, okay, like, yeah. Whatever.
I like to look at religion and look at what matters, which is, you've got this pro-life versus pro-choice debate, right? And on this Saturday, I'm interviewing Allie Phillips, who's running for House of Representatives in Tennessee in a I don't remember the district, in Clarksville, Tennessee, because at 19 weeks she found out her fetus wasn't viable and she had to get an abortion. The baby was quite literally dying and ended up dying but as a fetus before it came to term at 19 weeks. Well, she couldn't get that abortion in Tennessee. She couldn't get it in any surrounding states either because there was such a backlog. She had to go to New York and spend thousands upon thousands of dollars to abort a dead baby that was a very tragic experience. Now, how does this relate to Maddie? Well, Maddie, she's in this specific instance talking about purity culture and how, you should only be married. Well, how about this lady who was married and had a tragic incident happen, but because of these archaic rules that exist in certain states, wasn't able to get medical help they needed to prevent an ectopic pregnancy, to prevent sepsis, which, one of the leading causes of sepsis and deaths in our country is due to complications of pregnancy. how does this all relate? It's the same people with the same conversation saying, oh, you want to rip our babies from our wombs. You want everyone to have sex and use abortions as birth control. They're not having the deeper conversation. They're almost using anecdotal feelings to say, to sort of navigate through what is more complicated conversation. And by that, I mean, yeah, it'd be easy to say, well, I just want to do what God tells me to do so I get into heaven. That to me is more virtue signaling than doing the hard work, which is to say, I chose to stay abstinent till marriage because I wanted to know that the bond I had with my partner was something that we shared directly with each other and no one else. Mind you, Grant didn't wait till he was married, you know what I mean? But as a man, he doesn't have to deal with a lot of the same projections that young women have to deal with, right? Young women are told, oh, it's like chewing gum if you've had sex before marriage. Who wants used gum? These analogies they use are so toxic. I've only learned about them as an adult because I didn't grow up with purity culture. We had a lot of different things going on, a lot of Catholic guilt and other things in New England, but purity culture wasn't one of them. I didn't have to worry about girls putting t-shirts on at the pool because they were worried what the youth pastors were going to think. Boy, we can't let these guys' eyes wander. Very problematic stuff happening out there. Some people in the comment sections will, and by the way, I'm not going to read them, but some people, but you can still leave a comment. Some people in the comment sections will say things like, oh, you wouldn't say this about the Muslim culture or other cultures that are, and it's like, no, look, I can speak about Christianity because I was raised a Christian. I generally appreciate the standard beliefs of the simplicity of the 10 Commandments and things like that, right? The standard beliefs of like help your neighbors out. I just don't see the platform that a lot of evangelicals are standing by being the one that's most helpful. Jesus was a progressive. He wanted to help the poor. He hung out with the homeless and the prostitutes, and he wanted to help the vagrants and the people that had addictions. In today's world, he would be on the streets organizing campaigns to help the people that need the help. He wouldn't be hoarding his wealth. He wouldn't be doing all these sorts of things like worrying about such trivial things, like whether or not you decide to fornicate before you sign the paperwork. Hey, I'll be honest with you. Wife and I got married in Mexico. I don't even know if my marriage is, well, it is. Okay, we are married. But my point being is like, do you have to be married on paper? What if you didn't get married on paper, but you just got married symbolically? Like, these gray areas that exist between like what is marriage and what isn't. When the Bible was written, people were probably getting married at 15. Now people are getting married later and later. So they think it's just this crazy spiritual warfare. I see it as just very competent conversations from people going, I think your way is flawed, but I would be okay with you doing what you're doing, except for the fact that you're promoting this flaw to a lot of young people that are going to have severe issues and need a lot of deprogramming and therapy, to come out of it. Our friend, Dr. Lori Anderson, we love her. I talked about her yesterday on the podcast, or this morning on the podcast, and I'm talking about her again right now, talks about not having her first kiss till later in life and having all these deprogrammed evangelical purity culture thoughts she's had to untangle just so she could live an authentic in bountiful life. Some people will be fine with that purity and some people won't. And I think when we remove judgment and just let people be, then we won't be worried about the cash cow and the sort of poster child image that she and so many preachers' daughters have to live so that they'll be loved and appreciated by their fathers.
There's a quote that I sent it to you the other day. It was like, there's no one who's ever hated you that was in a better spot than you.
I saw that. I think you sent me that.
Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not.
I mean, yeah. Regardless, it's like no one should be sending someone such hateful things, period. And
I agree. People shouldn't be sending hate. I'm not sending hate. I don't have any hate at all for Maddie. I wish her and her family well, her daughter. I wish them all well. It's just like, let's not pretend that they're not super wealthy, doing super great, having really no controversies in their life from the financial aspect and things like that. She had her car repossessed because she forgot to make payments on it. Imagine being so comfortable with your life, credit score, finances that you can just let your car get taken away and it doesn't even matter. It's more of like a ha-ha. She's not living life or death by a parking ticket. That's not going to sink thank her. She's doing perfectly fine.
What you were saying really fast, I was reading just today in 2 Timothy where it said, anyone desiring godliness will be persecuted.
Yeah.
So it's just like, be prepared. And hopefully like the reason why people dislike us or whatever come for us is because we're pursuing righteousness and holiness. And like other things, what you're saying, like sometimes people do call you out and you're like, oh, maybe I do need to listen to that. Like there's been things people have called me out on. I'm like, oh, maybe you're right. Like I need to refine that. Thank you.
I actually like the host of this podcast. I don't know a thing about her, but she seems like she's got at least a little bit less of an ego with it.
For saying that. But it hurts when like it's not like, I don't know, when they don't really know the full story, you're like, oh, you want to like defend yourself. But then sometimes it's like they genuinely are coming from like a good place. And it's like in our best interest to humble ourselves too and be like, okay, maybe there's something I need to evaluate here.
Yeah.
But the good thing too, I've seen with y'all is like you are making a massive impact. Like I think oftentimes we only focus on the hate or this or that. And it's like at the end of the day, like the gospel is being preached. Like y'all are standing for truth. Like I watched.
What impact? What are they? I mean, maybe I don't know, but are, like Taylor Swift, every city she goes to, she donates millions to food banks. If I were making an impact, I would try to get my dad to give me my inheritance early and try to be a Mr. Beast. Just start fixing some of the world's problems, or maybe voting in politicians that would help fix a lot of the world's problems. You know, so many people that are Christian. And by the way, there's a lot of Democrats that are Christian too, but there's a lot of red state Christians. I think of some of my own family that are conservative Christians, and they do help out. I have a very charitable family. They help out like this family over here or that family in our community, but they aren't ready to help out the immigrants. They aren't ready to help out the poor people that might not speak English, but they earned their right here and they have a fair working job. And don't just help out the people within your community. And that's why I'm more for like taxing the ultra rich and even taxing the churches, because you tax the ultra rich at a fair level, then you have more social infrastructure to truly help people. I get the government has mismanaged a lot of money, but are you telling me churches haven't mismanaged a lot of money with their private jets going around doing all their things in their mega complexes? And they say, well, God wanted abundance. I believe it. I believe he wanted abundance, but not just for you.
You guys behind the scenes, and like if anybody doesn't know who you guys, because there might be so many misconceptions, like we can literally vouch for y'all's character of who you guys are behind the scenes, and like that's why we're best friends with y'all, because we love y'all. You challenge us, you make us better, and truly like y'all are even better offline. And
I'm sure. Anyhow, so that's gonna do it for me. So my thoughts on spiritual warfare, it's hogwash. Yeah, there are going to be haters that exist online, but those that have valid concerns, they're never addressed. The valid concerns are never addressed, which is be all for what you want to do with your body. Just don't shame people who have a different sort of ideology and perspective of what they want to do with theirs. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Again, I'm not going to read the comment section of this video because I already know where I'm at here. But I will have live stream content coming for you, 7 p.m. East Coast time tonight, before and after the final episode of The Bachelorette. And also check out the Rush Hour podcast right here. You can scan that if you want to listen to my takes on all the entertainment and pop culture news that's out there. We'll see you then. Be kind to each other. Bye, everybody.